We are back with another episode of the Gold Standard here on Fox 19. Now, I'm Joe Danneman. He is Charlie Goldsmith. If you're watching the video version of this, you're going to see we are coming to you from Great American Ballpark in the Reds dugout after the Reds' final regular season home game of the year. And we just witnessed what I believe is one of the great catches of my lifetime for the Cincinnati Reds. Certainly, given the circumstances, given the fact that Noelvi Marte was an infielder at the start of the season and a lifetime infielder, for him to make the play he made at the right field wall, and we'll start there, we'll talk Reds. How big of a play do you think that is for this team, him robbing that home run to beat the Pirates?
Jose Trevino in the clubhouse made a great point, and he is one of the guys who's been in a World Series, who knows what these moments are like. He said that catch, that's what this team is. There's talent, there's youth, but, let's put these young guys out there and see what they're capable of. I know it was just the Pirates today, but that type of athleticism and upside, it's give these guys a shot against anybody, and on the right night, they can do it. On the wrong night, they can lose a series to Pittsburgh. But this was where it went their way, and it was special.
Okay, so you've been working on some fun names for the play, because that's what we do, right? You have a play like this, and then we put a name on a T-shirt. What have you come up with so far?
I think my favorite, and again, the people will decide, Leap 16.
Okay.
He's number 16.
Sure.
But I feel like just having to explain it takes away from how good it is. The Great American Robbery, which apparently is the name of an old movie, was one. There were a couple others.
Jump Marte, you said.
Jump Marte
it's
was
very
another
good.
that I came up with as well.
That's my favorite so far, Jump Marte. So I'm going to go with that until someone comes up with something better, and I'm sure someone will. Let me ask you about him in that moment, because there's a great story to a question you asked to Terry Francona after the game. Give me the background of Noelvi Marte and the decision to put him in right field, ultimately ending up with him making one of the biggest plays of the season.
I'll keep it brief, but I'll tell the full story real quick. I remember it was Saturday in New York. It was the end of batting practice. I stand out there, I look around.
Yeah.
Is that Noelvi Marte in center field working with Santiago Espinal? Hey, maybe he's just shagging. So I ask Espe, I go, was that for real? And he goes, yeah. And then I talked to Cowgill. Then the very next day, Marte's in center field. And it's like, oh, wow, we're doing this. Terry Francona jokes. He goes, if this doesn't work, blame Colin Cowgill, the outfield coach. And I asked Tito, you know what? I guess it worked.
Yep.
And Francona credited Cowgill. I give Francona and Cowgill and the front office credit, because this was the Reds' best decision of the season. This was a season-changing, decision, moving Marte to right, opening up the ability to get Cabrian Hayes, who has been struggling badly, but has been a net positive for the Reds this season. They are not in this point without those set of moves.
Hard question for you to answer, because I have not prepped you on this. How many guys on this team do you think can make that catch? Ellie can make it.
That's it.
TJ Friedel can't?
Friedel can't get that high. Benson's not like the same stretchy leaper as Noelvi Marte is. And that's the thing about Marte, too. And I remember stressing this in 2023. There was all this hype when Ellie got called up, understandably so. Earned every single bit of it. But the Ellie effect overshadowed the fact that Marte was the Reds' flashiest prospect in a while, except for Ellie. If Ellie didn't exist, Marte would have been the type of debut that would have been right near there on the Hunter Green, Jay Bruce, Homer Bailey tier. Now, of course, Ellie was the very, very top, but Marte has all of those elite characteristics, and boy, did we see that.
Okay, so here they are now going to Milwaukee. As of this taping, the Reds have taken the final game of the series against the Pirates. They are currently a half game behind the Mets, but they have the same number of wins as the Mets, and that's the number to watch for the rest of this weekend is, can the Reds finish with the same number of wins as the Mets, or maybe even one more? That'll punch their tickets to the playoffs. We know what the Reds are facing, right? The Milwaukee Brewers. We don't know how Milwaukee's going to handle this series, because their magic number to get the 1 seed is at 1. So will Milwaukee play their guys? Will they put them in bubble wrap for a week to make sure they're healthy for the start of their first series? We don't know how that's going to play out. But how do you feel about the Reds' chances now, given the fact they're neck and neck with the Mets? Mets go to Miami, Reds go to Milwaukee.
The Reds are the team that's playing better baseball than the Mets right now. The Mets have this dangerous ability to just get hot, but they've been waiting for that for multiple months. What I like about the Reds heading into this series in Milwaukee is you have Abbott, you have Brady Singer, who I still believe in pretty strongly in 2 of these 3 games. But not just that, you have a pretty well-rested Nick Martinez, Chase Burns, and potentially Hunter Green on Sunday available out of the bullpen. They have a lot of levers they can pull, a lot of pieces they can use. Milwaukee's pitching staff is actually, decimated right now. They're at an innings crunch, fatigue, all that kind of stuff's going on. So they've had to do the whole bullpen roulette type thing. The Reds are in a much better spot with their pitching, even with that Zach Littell starting on Friday.
So final question here on the Reds before we transition to the Bengals. How do you feel the vibe is in the room as they head to Milwaukee? Look, these guys understand. They know the numbers. 13 consecutive series losses against Milwaukee. You go back to 2021, the Reds have lost 44 of 60 games against the Milwaukee Brewers. That number is absolutely staggering. But from the brief amount of time we were inside the room today after the Noelvi Marte catch, it feels like this team at least believes they've got a real shot to do this weekend.
This team doesn't care who it plays. I really genuinely believe that about the Reds. I feel, and even talking to guys before today, I feel nothing about the Milwaukee effect for this series now. A lot of that probably is the fact that Milwaukee really doesn't have anything to play for. And if the Reds end up somehow, one of the best upsets in team history, beat the Dodgers and go back to Milwaukee, then I think the Milwaukee effect will be at the forefront of everybody's minds. Then it'll be a huge thing that's right there. They don't feel that this weekend. They just know they need to go play.
Okay, let's transition now to the Bengals. And the Bengals are coming off the most lopsided loss in team history, a 38-point loss against Minnesota. I've been calling it the meltdown in Minnesota. The 5 turnovers, 2 taken back for touchdowns. Zach Taylor's talked about that all week long as the thing they've got to change. What I've been trying to do, Charlie, is find out what's a fluke and what's a season-long concern. 5 turnovers and some of the guys who fumbled, it felt kind of fluky. Some of the plays taken back for a touchdown, especially the one on Noah Fant, that's not going to happen every single week. But what are some of the season-long concerns that you take away from the Bengals' performance in Minnesota?
I'm all caps worried about the Bengals' offensive line. It's funny when people, even people in the Reds clubhouse are asking me what's going on. What I say, the first thing is, their starting guard was bad and then got hurt. Their next guard, the guy they signed off the street at the end of training camp with no training camp reps under his belt, got Burrow hurt and then now may be getting benched. For the rookie 5th-round pick who they drafted to be their backup tackle because they didn't have enough money to sign, or under the cap financial flexibility, to sign the real backup tackle they needed or the backup tackle they needed. So all of a sudden they thrust Jalen Rivers into that role. Tangent, this team's been terrible at drafting offensive linemen for a decade. And all of a sudden now Rivers, who spent all of OTAs and 2/3 of training camp at tackle before shifting to guard because he looked so struggling at tackle against real edge rushers in space, they moved him to guard. That's not good. That's not a good place to be. And that sums up where they're at.
But every NFL team, I would tell you, with maybe the exception of 1 or 2, has at least one guy on their offensive line that's a weak point, right? Nobody in the NFL, except maybe an exception or 2, has 5 guys they feel great about on their offensive line. Maybe I'm wrong. But that leads me back to a guy like Ted Karras and a guy like Orlando Brown. 2 guys who are very accountable for the way they played against Minnesota and the way they played so far this year. Said all the right things. They didn't like the way they performed. It was terrible to look on tape. I think Ted Karras said, a lot of times in life things aren't as bad as you think, and then you watch it and they're not that bad. He said it was maybe even worse. And so he understands that this is on him. Orlando Brown said the same thing. At this point, how much do the Bengals need those guys to perform like themselves to make up for the fact that right now right guard is this turnstile of they don't know what it's going to be?
I'll get to them in 1 second. First, I want to say, too, Dylan Fairchild should have been in a competition with someone else. The Bengals did not have someone else.
Yep.
And Dylan Fairchild is playing pretty poorly right now. So he's a part of this. That's kind of a weak link that's shown up on the film on the offensive line. Orlando, it's been 3 tough games. He hasn't looked quite the same. He has to make whatever adjustment, whatever change in his technique, whatever, getting your sea legs under you over the course of the season. And you can say the same thing about Ted Karras against specific styles of blitzers and rushes. Just haven't been as good as we've seen. And that's a whole part of this, too, as well. Amarius Mims is actually playing great, I think. But the other 4 spots, plus Drew Sample, have led to a lot of losses.
Physicality is the word I keep hearing from Ted Karras, and even Zach Taylor said it himself when talking about the offensive line. Did that stand out to you when you watched it back, the game in Minnesota?
That combined with what Dan Pitcher described as hesitation, like it's think, then go, as opposed to just get downhill and go hit somebody and attack. And I think that's a reflection of the inexperience with Fairchild, the inexperience in this scheme with Reisner, now with Rivers, if he's their starting right guard. You know, Karras and Brown shouldn't be feeling of any of that, but they've had their losses as well.
Is it fixable? When I say it, the run game. And listen, the Bengals have played some really good run defenses. I think it's important to understand that when you play Cleveland, when you play Minnesota, and Jacksonville has shown so far this year, their defense has put up really good numbers, that you might just be facing some elite fronts, and that's going to expose the Bengals' weaknesses at line. There will be some games where the Bengals have the chance to get loose a little bit in the run game, but is it fixable to the point where it can be good enough to supplement Jake Browning in the passing game for this team to be competitive?
Zach Taylor should take some heat. You know, for example, the blitz plans for third down, like that goes back to coaching. Like those weren't there picking up those blitzes. But the bright side for the Bengals is that Zach Taylor, maybe his biggest strength is his long track record of in-season adjustments. Redesigning completely the run game in 2022. He did the same in 2021. He did the same in 2023 with Jake Browning. Last year it wasn't the run game, but kind of the way they shaped Chase Brown's role in it over the course of the year on the fly. Like, they actually are very good at that. And they'll have to be. They'll need coaching to become an advantage for them, whether you like it or not.
T. Higgins, his numbers are down for the first 3 weeks. That was talked about in Zach Taylor's press conference. Is this just the ball will eventually come to him, or do the Bengals need to find a way to get him involved so T. Higgins can go out and make the kind of plays we expect? You think back to last year against Denver, I would argue, and you're a better mental Rolodex than I am, that was probably his best game as a pro.
He says it was his best game.
I mean, considering the moment and the catches and the numbers and the plays, it was unbelievable what he did in that game against Denver last year. Should he be a priority on Monday Night Football to get involved opposite of Jamar Chase? Because Jamar's had a couple of games where he got heavy volume, especially against Jacksonville. 16 targets, 14 catches. Do they need to get T. Higgins more involved urgently starting on Monday night?
So let's learn the difference between Joe Burrow and Jake Browning. There have been games where Burrow said this. He's called them, this is a T game. And I think there have been days where it's a T game just because T needed one. I remember the Buffalo game in 2023. Burrow was like, all right, it's time. We got to get T going. And he did. And he's Joe Burrow. He can do whatever he wants. Can Jake Browning author a T game if that's what's necessary?
Yeah.
If that's, Riley Moss on T. Higgins, if that's what the coverage dictates or not? Does Jake have the ability to just force T the ball in the type of difficult looks that Burrow can? Because they need to get T going.
Bengals are still 2-1 and in first place. And here's Denver, a team a lot of people expected to be a playoff team this year. They're 1-2, so this is a massive game on Monday night for Denver. It's obviously a massive game for, I think, the coaching staff of the Bengals to prove that they're not going to lose this team this year after what happened in Minnesota. Okay,
Can I say one more thing about that going forward? My hottest take of all time. I thought the defense played pretty well in Minnesota. And you talk about coaching, and that's going to be a key to this. That's what set me down this rabbit hole. Al Golden, after week 2, said, our plan as a defense on third down was bad, and that's on me. He took a lot of accountability and showed a lot of frustration about himself for that. You saw Carson Wentz fooled on many, many third downs in that first half. Then the game was over and kind of signed, sealed, delivered. But that was really encouraging to me, the way Al did exactly what he said he was going to do.
Sean Payton versus Al Golden feels like a great game within the game kind of matchup. Okay, so what is the path for the Bengals to win on Monday night? I'm convinced that the Bengals are going to play much better, and they're going to be very competitive in this game. People have to remember the NFL, what happened 1 week before doesn't always mean it's going to happen again the next week. And everybody knows that, but what I mean is it's such a week-to-week league. It's such a game plan league. It's such a coach's scheme league. That's why I think there's so much pressure on the Bengals coaching staff this week to go out and give this team every opportunity to be competitive, be in it in the fourth quarter, and maybe steal one on Monday Night Football. So to you, Charlie, what's the path for the Bengals to win this game on Monday night?
The billion-dollar question. And it's so interesting. And they're going to ask themselves this question. So let me tell you something. Every Saturday, because it's a Monday game, it'll be on Sunday.
Yep.
The Bengals coordinators and their analytics team basically meet up in the morning. And they ask themselves some questions. Are we going to take the coin toss? Are we going to take the ball if we win the coin toss? What is our strategy going to be in certain punt situations, in certain go-for-it situations? And they decide, all right, this is the type of game we think it's going to be. In Week 1 versus the Browns, and Week 3 versus the Vikings, clearly their decisions and their game plan and process showed this is going to be what I call a Big Ten West football game. Conservative, field position, and it didn't go well. You're playing with Jake Browning. You're also going up against a bad, let's call it what it is, Denver offense so far. You could make the case, you know what, the defense has been okay in Cincinnati. Let's try to play another Big Ten West style game. I think they should learn their lesson and just say, you know what, let's kind of let it rip like you tried to in Jacksonville. Let's take your chances. Let's give your playmakers opportunities and see what happens. And if Jake throws 5 picks, he throws 5 picks. But I don't think the plan they had in Minnesota with the state of the run game has a chance.
Okay, I'm going to fact check you here. Is Northwestern in the Big Ten West?
They were.
Yeah. Yeah, so
special teams is the strength of the program.
You know all about the Big Ten West. Okay, we're going to come back to the Bengals here at the end of this, but let's start going towards the end with the Gold Rush. This is rapid-fire questions to Charlie. I'm going to bring this back to the Reds because the Reds have, depending on when you listen to this, finish the regular season or have one final weekend in the regular season, and we're going to play superlatives for the Reds. We're going to hand out some awards here, okay? Team MVP. I think this is hard. Maybe.
Marte kind of changed the math a bit today. I was not giving him any sort of shot, but
did he get a vote?
Did he just do it? I'm still going to give it to Andrew Abbott, but with the disproportional weight you put in these types of games, if Marte has one more moment, I truly think I might give it to him.
I'm giving Andrew Abbott the MVP, but then I was going to ask who's this team's Cy Young. I think you have to give that to Andrew Abbott as well.
You know what? Yes, it's Abbott. Man, Tony Santillan has a real case.
Okay.
What a season. All right, I'm going to toot my horn here. I'm not a bragger. It is my biggest player evaluation win of all time. Tony got DFA'd. Taken off the roster. I held on to my stock the entire way, and I have the receipts to prove. I believe in Tony, even when he had 2 full years in AAA. I believe, and here he is.
Here he is, one of the most important players on a team who is on the brink of the playoffs. Easy one, but I'm curious just to hear your explanation why. Biggest disappointment for the Reds so far this season is?
I'll say all the guys who didn't fit. That'd be like Jamer Candelario, Alexis Diaz, CES, guys who just got squeezed off the roster because of their style and approach and overall game, and especially with Diaz, the approach, just not a fit anymore.
Yep.
And, that's some talent, some investment that didn't pan out for different reasons. You can blame different guys, but those were all supposed to be big pieces.
You didn't say Matt McClain.
I still believe, man.
That's okay if you still believe. I believe in him as well.
I would keep playing Matt McClain.
Still.
Yeah.
That was going to be my next question.
You saw the double, and
follow-up.
I'm pointing to it right here. It was Hayes to Lux, who is at second today. Lux can't make that throw, and that, I believe, sparked like a big rally for Pittsburgh.
And you've talked about this team leaning into pitching and defense, and look at this team and what they did in the 9th inning.
Yeah.
In a 2-1 game, it was a defensive play. But Matt McClain, if they make the playoffs, you want Matt McClain at second base?
I want Matt McClain at second base. It's not just, all right, Matt quietly has had 3 different stretches over the last 6 weeks where he's turned the corner so much that people behind the scenes have been talking to me being yeah, Matt's going. And then he just goes 0 for 12.
Yeah.
It's very weird. He turns the corner and then he goes 0 for 12. That wasn't the case for him in the summer when he was just kind of stuck in a mire. I think there's probably another lift of the tide coming from McClain. I'll take that chance, especially because I'm just not too confident in Gavin Lux defensively.
He's got the gold standard stamp. Keep playing Matt McClain, says Charlie Goldsmith. I think he will play, so I think it's a moot point for us to even to discuss it, other than the fact that the Reds are just going to ride him.
It's a fair question.
I think it's an important discussion.
It's a question they're asking.
Yes, no question. Okay, next one in the Gold Rush will be, if the Reds make the playoffs, who's the most important player on this team for them to upset the Dodgers.
You know who it is now? Like yesterday, I would have done the whole Hunter Green thing.
I thought for sure you were going Hunter Green.
I'm going Nick Lodolo now. This is now a massive storyline if the Reds make the playoffs. Lodolo today was rolling, and you've heard me say this a million times. All you need to watch with Nick Lodolo is the swings against his curveball. That is the upside pitch. He had that slow stretch in the summer, but then he had curveballs, I want to say, against like Juan Soto, Fernando Tatis, and one other of those elite hitters in like a 2-week stretch. And it's like, yes. And then he went on a roll. Then he got the blister issue. He had that breaking ball today, and then he left the game with a groin injury, and he's not putting any, day-to-day, that kind of stuff on it. What can he give you, if anything, on Wednesday? That would be the whole plan here. The reason this ballpark, not really, but the whole vision is get to the playoffs, give the ball to your pitchers, and see what happens. And having the uncertainty of what you can get out of Lodolo out of Game 2, that's the story of the week to me.
It would line up, correct me if I'm wrong, Green, Lodolo, Abbott for those 3 games in LA.
I believe you could do Singer in Game 3, like if you wanted to, but just go with Abbott.
Okay. He left the game on Thursday after 81 pitches, 12 strikeouts. You know how hard it is to get 12 strikeouts and 81 pitches?
That's how good.
Efficient he was. He was that dominant against the Pittsburgh Pirates. That gives him 6 days until he starts potentially in L.A. in Game 2 if the Reds get there. We'll see if his groin is ready. Last one here for the Gold Rush. What kind of a realistic shot do you have for the Reds to beat the Dodgers? Because the Dodgers, World Series champions, the pitching staff, you think the Reds is good, theirs is just as.
They have the mature versions of Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo.
With Shohei, Yamamoto, Blake Snell, Glasnow. I mean, one of those guys. And the big worry with the Dodgers is, the bullpen. Well, they can throw one of those guys in the bullpen. They can throw Kershaw in the bullpen. He's already doing
Sasaki.
that. They have a lot of options. I think they're going to fix their bullpen at least enough to get themselves to the 9th inning, which has still been kind of a problem for them as well. But I asked, what's the path for the Bengals to beat the Broncos on Monday Night Football? What would the path be if the Reds do get there out of Milwaukee, go to L.A., play the 3-game series in the wild card round? What's the path for the Reds to win that?
I mean, we've seen Hunter do that against that type of lineup on any given night. This is why you have Hunter Green for a game like Tuesday would be. You need one of your starters to just outduel and be a true ace, look like the best pitcher in baseball. It could be Green, Abbott, or Lodolo. Then you need another kind of all-hands-on-deck game. Can you string hits? Can Chase Burns and Nick Martinez combine for 4 innings out of the bullpen? Can Terry Francona manage his tail off? There's going to have to be another game where all the pieces align strategically for the Reds to kind of take that series.
Did the Reds make the right decision with Hunter Green? Because it lines up. I thought it was a good gamble. Yeah. Because here's how I look at sports, okay? To me, it's not just about getting into the playoffs. If you're not lining up trying to win a championship, what are you doing? Okay? And I understand people might push back on that and say, just get the Reds to the playoffs and take your best shot with what you got. But if Hunter Green's not available to pitch in that first series, I don't think the Reds have a chance at all of beating the LA Dodgers. So I thought it was a good gamble, a calculated gamble by the Reds. And I think it speaks more to what they think of the other teams around them in the wild card. They're banking on the Mets going to Miami and playing a team that gives them trouble, that is playing good baseball right now, and that the Reds will find a way to sneak in. I understand it could completely backfire. It really could, and they would look terrible. They would have egg on their face that they didn't put Hunter Green, move him up a day, and have him there for game 162. But I think if you're in this to win a championship, I think this was a calculated and correct gamble.
I don't know if that's it. I don't know if that was their thinking. This has been the hardest question for me to answer, second hardest. The first was, who's going to start on some random Wednesday in August. That was like a whole storyline for a week. Terry Francona has said no comment multiple times about this question. It is a very gray area. He could easily have said that. And that would have been, sure, everyone's on the same page, great. I talked to Hunter today. He said, not my decision. I wasn't involved. There was a process that went on. It's tricky, so much so that, I'm reminded of something Terry Francona says, I'm willing to look like I made a mistake to protect someone else. I wonder if there's much more to this story that Terry Francona is protecting by framing it the way that he is, but that's just speculation. It's a weird question. Why the Reds landed at this point.
It's fascinating. And it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out here this weekend and then potentially in the wild card round if the Reds do get there. We'll finish the show with the Gold Nugget. This is when we dive into Charlie's notebook for a great anecdote, a great soundbite, a great moment, or a great interview. I want to take it back to the Bengals. Do you have a Gold Nugget for us on something that you've started working on or an interview you've done with one of the Bengals here recently?
It's a good question. I'll go with the accountability from Dalton Reisner in the post-game locker room on Sunday. He had just gotten benched, and he knew it, and he was saying the injury was not a part of it. He was talking about just his underperformance and what that meant and how that's felt for him this season. One of the more honest conversations you'll see from a lineman who kind of was a part of a team just blowing it, taking it right on the chin on one of the toughest days probably that he's had in the NFL.
He's the great Charlie Goldsmith. I'm Joe Daneman. This was another episode of The Gold Standards. Make sure you check us out every week, wherever you get your streaming platforms with Fox 19 now and wherever you get your podcasts. Who knows, the next time we do this could be in L.A., it could be the Reds going back to Milwaukee for another series. We don't know where the Red season's going to take us. That's the fun part of late September and early October baseball here in Cincinnati. We'll see you next time on The Gold Standard.